reconvene the October 17th, 2023, 2 p.m. meeting to order at 3:10 p.m. With no further business, we will adjourn that meeting at 3:10 p.m. and now call the meeting of the Waco City Council on October 17th, 2023 to order at 3:10 p.m. Please join me for a moment of silence, and if you would, please keep the families in the Middle East, the children, the nation of Israel, who was brutally attacked, and all the ongoing war and the danger and risk that's occurring there in your thoughts and prayers during this time. Thank you. We provide an opportunity for the public to address the City Council on any agenda item or during the hearing of visitors portion of the agenda. On items other than public hearings, speakers will be allotted 1 3-minute presentation regardless of the number of agenda items the speaker wishes to address. If you're here to speak and have not filled out a registration card, please see the City Secretary, staff at the registration table outside of the auditorium to provide registration information so that staff can contact you if necessary. If you have handouts, please let us know at the beginning of your presentation, and staff will distribute those to council. If you're unable to approach the podium due to physical limitations, a microphone is available to be brought to you. We do have one card for the work sessions, and that is Travis Whitus, and he's here to speak on work session 2023-858. Mr. Whitus.
Travis Whitus, 109 West 2nd Street in Georgetown. I just wanted to come up and give a quick comment, on I think this is item 7 for the development policies and subdivision regulations. Right now, I'm an engineer. I work, basically I design single-family residential subdivisions. Hear it all the time about affordability. It's becoming even increasingly, more of an issue with the, rise in interest rates. It really seems like a lot of the ordinances that get passed these days really don't seem to address the issue of affordability, especially in newer family houses. And that's, right now Waco kind of does have an affordability issue on the new single family compared to everywhere else in Central Texas that I work in. Waco is about 2 times more on the cost side of just construction. And I have concerns about the new proposed ordinances. I provide, I think, 10 pages of comments on the stormwater and on the street comments, or on the street policy. That was about a year ago, but since then I haven't really heard anything on that. I know I heard it 2 weeks ago, basically, that it's going to come back, but it's been a year since we provided those comments, and I haven't heard anything on it. And really, I'm just here to say, I'm worried about the affordability, and I think, if there's some way that we can get some sort of, pricing or, estimated cost, like a real good faith estimated cost of what the proposed change is, because so far I haven't, it's a very large list of changes, and I haven't seen anything that says, it will, lower or it will, increase or lower housing. And I have fears that it will increase the housing costs pretty substantially. That also, from reading this work session, it's also the first time that I've heard about the park dedication fees. So I was kind of curious just to hear about that in this work session. Thanks.
We appreciate that and definitely share those concerns, and we'll take them seriously. Next, we have Vernon Davis on the same work session.
Just for simple clarity, is this for raw undeveloped land being converted and platted, or is this for existing platted and developed property within the city limits?
I'll turn that over to our city staff.
We'll cover in the work session a comprehensive update, but any questions you got, Vernon, I'd lay them out now and we'll cover it in the work session.
So my concern is with like the existing infrastructure downtown that's antiquated, areas that are not currently served by storm drainage and haven't been or were never connected, those that were put in place and never connected. Those are concerned sewer, water, storm? Is that burden going to be on the landowner when we've been paying taxes on it for 100 years? Or is this just for new developments where we're converting farm acreage to a new development use? That's my question.
Thank you, sir. We'll make sure those get answered here in this presentation. Appreciate you being here. Is there anyone else here to speak on a work session? If not, then we will recess the regular session and convene to work session with a report from our city manager.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. Welcome to today's meeting. It's, man, it's a great agenda. Staff's done a great job putting it together, and I'm looking forward to them sharing it with you. We are pulling, we got one change. We're pulling Resolution 894 from consideration. We've got a signature that we still need on an easement, so that'll be pulled for a later date. 894 being pulled. I want to start this meeting with an employee recognition, and it's one that I'm excited for the person. I'm not real excited to bring you the news, though. And that's, we've got a impending retirement of Kent George, our Economic Development Director, who's sitting in the third row behind Fiona there. We can't, raise your hand and wave at the people. Come on. Okay, so Kent came to us 5 years ago as our Economic Development manager at the time, and has since promoted. He's got 20 years in the business and in the biz, as he likes to say, and he's been in Waco 5 years. And our economic development team is small, but they are mighty, and they've been a great asset to me as manager. Kent has been a great asset to me as manager, and really deserves a warm round of applause after I give a little bit of his history in Waco, because in those 5 years, we've got more than 5,000 jobs added, many that are at and above median income level for the community, billions of dollars of private investment that he's helped facilitate in this market. Just quite a resume that he's built over the 20 years, but particularly in the 5 years that he's served here in Waco. Projects like Amazon or Uzun Uts, Envasis, Hello Bello, the Pavilion. I could keep going. And I will, because you got Marriott AC opening soon, and Magnolia Hotel, and the Magnolia headquarters. Those are all projects that Kent served on and led our economic development team on. Certainly has a lot to be proud of, including our just released economic development strategic plan, which I'm real proud of, 10-year plan there. And he's also recruited well on his team. He's flanked today by Jeremy Pacina, who, man, you've got a lot to cover now that Kent's not going to be there. But he's hired well on his team as well. So Kent, just wanted to say a special thanks to you. Good luck on retirement. And if y'all don't mind, give him a round of applause. Yeah, if you want him to give a speech later, he is going to be sitting at the table here in a minute.
I think now.
Yeah. So you got one more crack at him.
This council has a high priority for economic development and growing our economy, and you've exceeded the high expectations that this community has. And Waco looks a lot different than it did when you came here, and is going to look a lot different in the next 5 more years with stuff that's in the pipeline right now that you've brought. And I hope that you can bring your kids and someday your grandkids back to this community, and you can point out the impact directly that you had. Waco is a much stronger, financially secure, and vibrant city because of your efforts and your work. And it's been a real pleasure building a friendship with you, as well as it has been getting to see the good work that you've done. Thank you.
Well said. And then we have one more sort of recognition item, Mayor, that I think you're going to lead.
Okay, I'll lead on this one. We got a new dad on the council, so we want to give some congratulations to Councilmember Ewing, as well as his wife, Hannah, and baby Nora, who came into the world just a couple weeks ago and is already looking beautiful, which she gets from her mother.
Thank you very much. My wonderful wife, Hannah, did all the hard work on September 29th, and Nora joined us on this side of the world, and she's been a delight. It's our first child, and I'm getting choked up thinking about just how great it's been the last couple of weeks, and the amount of human excrement that you don't think is gross when it comes from your own child. I was thinking today, like, what's the biggest thing? Someone came to take pictures of her today, and they asked what the biggest surprise was, and that's it for me. It's like, man, I feel like I was ready for a lot of stuff. I wasn't ready for how much I didn't think these things were gross because it's her.
Oh, just wait.
I'm certain that'll change, but yeah, we're in love, and it's been a huge perspective shift. At the same time, having her makes me think that everything that I'm doing is trivial if it's not in service of making her life better. It also makes me, on the other side of that coin, double down on the work that we get to do here to continue to make Waco a better place for her to live and grow up. So thank you for this recognition. It's been a great couple weeks being a dad.
Love you guys.
If I fall asleep during the meeting, that's why. I was rocking her back to
For
sleep
1 week,
until
you
about
get
5 a.m.
you get an
so,
excuse this week.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a valid excuse, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Congrats.
I just asked for a legal opinion on something. We're going to research it. If you fall asleep during the meeting, I think we lose quorum. Jennifer's going to check.
But, yeah.
So.
I'm up. I'm up.
All we
I'll
need is a
slap rubber
body.
band on my
All we need
wrist.
is a
Call me.
body.
Okay, we're okay. We're all right. Mayor and council, if I may, I know we got a late start today, so I'm going to not go through my normal CMO report. I'll take any questions you have on the agenda items, but let's do that now instead of me highlighting a few items, because I know these work sessions are considerable, and we want to be sure and get to all of them today. So I'm going to yield my time back to you and take any questions that you might have on the agenda.
Any questions for Bradley on the agenda?
I don't have any questions, but I'll just quickly comment 1 minute worth here on the resolutions. There's just a couple, like you say, it's a heavy agenda today. A lot of great things that we're talking about in both the work session, which we're about to hear, and the resolutions. And the resolutions, I just wanted to point out a couple on housing that we were talking about, and the gentleman here referred to. A 53-unit multifamily that we're trying to facilitate on the Saul. A couple of projects, one on 15th Street, and another one in Sanger, the Sanger School. I just think it shows our intentionality about addressing the housing issue. And we're just seeing it here today in the resolutions in 3 different spots, so I appreciate that. One other thing I want to point out is the Flat Rock, I guess a Flat Rock Road project out there in District 5, and the work on that. It's not a small check, it's right at $6 million, but it's needed out in that area, and all these projects that we have on here, and we're going to be hearing about more in the work session. These are not inexpensive endeavors, but getting started on that one I think is very important. All these are great, but I just wanted to point a couple of those out. Thanks, Bradley.
It's a great agenda. Any other questions or notations for this agenda? If not, the consent agenda will include resolutions 2023-869 through 902. Are there any items council would like to remove from the consent agenda? If not, then the consent agenda includes resolutions 2023-869 through 902, with the exceptions of 876, 877, 878, 880, and 881, and 893, because Councilmember Borderoud has filed an affidavit of substantial interest for each of those items. The next item on the agenda is work session.
You got it.
Item 2023-858 through 859. Bradley, would you please introduce the work sessions?
Sure. Our first work session's 854. We have Joe Don Bobbitt here from everybody's favorite unit of local government, McLennan County Appraisal District. Feel free, if you want to sit at the table, you're welcome to, wherever you feel more comfortable. Yeah,
This will be
great.
fine. I'll try to keep it quick.
Okay, so this is our chief appraiser from MCADS here, and he's going to give an overview of their proposed office renovation project, and it has an accompanying resolution number 875 on the agenda today. Mr. Bobbitt.
Thanks, sir. Good afternoon. Thank you all for having us. The appraisal district is coming to request the city council approve a resolution authorizing the district to renovate and add on to our building and then finance it. The reason for this, well, we're not, well, one, the most important part, we're not asking for any additional funding. So our budget is, we intend to keep that going forward. We plan to use our reserve funds, our existing funds that we have to pay off our existing note. And then we will refinance the construction for the same amount or less than what we're currently paying. Since 2009, we've had, when we first moved to this building, we had 7,900 protests in a year. And now we're up to 19,000. So as the market has increased, so have the number of protests, and what was a more than adequate building, we're now kind of bumping up against our limits of. We also originally started with 2,000 protest hearings. Now we're up to 6,000 hearings. And so we have 45 days to get all those done so we can certify the roll so y'all can set the tax rates timely. And so it is quite important. So one of the main goals is to reduce the stress for the taxpayers. People are usually upset already when they come to see us. And when they come in the door and they find out it's a 2-hour wait and they're stuck in a little bitty room while they have to wait with everybody else, it doesn't help. And so we're looking to expand our waiting area. Right now, the exterior lobby can hold 16 people. The interior lobby can hold about 30 for the ARB. We'll basically be able to double both of those and hopefully cut down on the wait time also. The addition that we're proposing is about 2,500 square feet, and it'll allow, right now we have one customer service window, and so if people come up, you have to wait to get your exemption handled. And that's a picture of it right there. And so that's where you get handled, most of the traffic gets handled. After the addition, we'll have 5 additional windows, so we can handle 6 people at a time, where the intent is. We'll also have 2 additional ARB hearing rooms. So right now, we have 5 rooms that we conduct hearings in all summer, and then now we'll have 7 with this being added on. We'll also add on 60 additional parking spots. There have been times last few years that people have been parking across at Stripes or at the baseball field because our parking lot fills up. So this will allow us to, basically along the fence in the back, to add in additional parking spots and actually have room for everybody. We have roughly 2.5 acres, and the grassy area in the back is what we plan to pave. And so all told, the actual construction that we look at on the right side of our building behind it, we plan on adding on about 2,500 square feet. That'll cost about $1 million is what the architect is proposing. And then the rest will be for paving and a little bit of remodeling. I don't know if you have any other, we did look at other options too, but this is by far the most feasible and financially.
Sorry about that. Any questions?
Were you gonna, is that all you have, Joe Don?
There should be some other pages. I believe there was the plan on how we.
But there's not.
Oh, that might have been the Word document, but,
All right.
Any questions or comments?
No question. My only comment is, in the presentation provided, the renovation itself for the addition itself was noted at $400 a square foot for the addition. And I know you guys are going to do this because this is what you do for a living, but.
well, that was the architect's. That seems extremely high.
That was my call. It'd be tough to, find something that you could comp that to.
Yes, sir.
So-
No, that would be quite high, at least in my opinion.
Yep.
And so our building is essentially a metal building, and so we would just expand on the back of it with a metal building on the back. So we'll go through a construction manager at risk process, and hopefully they can come in and look at it and say, 400 is way too high, we can get it done for 150 or 200.
That's great. Yeah, that number just jumped out at me when I was reviewing it.
It
So
did to us also, but that's what the architect went with, and so
I got you.
we're proposing that as the upper limit.
Appreciate that. Thanks.
I'll just make a couple comments here, Mayor. I serve on the McLennan County Appraisal District Board too, and Joe Don, you've done just a fantastic job of communicating what we're trying to get done on that board. And our hands are tied a lot by the state, I say they're tied completely by the state legislature and how we have to run that process. And you do a great job of again, communicating that. And I always say, yeah, it's not the appraisal district's fault, it's the city council and commissioner's court. They set it in the school, sets it, it's a tax rate, not the value, but anyway. We want this to be, and you just mentioned the increase in volume. And I think our approach on that board is we want to get that feedback. We want people to come in and say, yeah, it's not worth that, it's worth it. We want to screw it down as tight as we can and still comply with the legislature requirements. But in order to do that, we have to bring folks in. And right now, I don't know if anybody out here, I know people on TV have been, challenged their valuations. It's not, I've gone in there as a board member, it's kind of hard to get in, and you're kind of actually sitting outside in a little hallway to get through the deal. So this is, I think, long overdue, just getting a place where people can go. And like you say, they're already, we're already kind of challenging when we come in the building. We want to make it a little more comfortable to think through what we're trying to get done and have a good experience for folks that are constructively trying to figure out the right value for their appraisal. And again, the other part that I think we went through several different options. At one point, I think we were completely redoing the second floor, and then we were going to add on a whole addition onto the back. And this seemed like the most efficient way to do it. And also, it's some value add to that property, value add to the building. We're not just spending the money and it's going away. I think it'll be a value add to the structure and the property. So I was supportive of this on the appraisal district board, and I'm supportive of it here as well. Thanks for your work, John.
I'd agree with Councilmember Holmes. I think this is going to be a good addition for our residents and taxpayers, and appreciate your efforts to get us here.
Thank you.
The only question I had, the alternatives
sorry,
that were
Councilwoman.
listed were, just so, a comparative analysis, so that you've decided on the $1 million second building is what came from these,
Yes,
correct?
ma'am. The other alternatives were more expensive. They looked neat until we got the price estimate back from the architect. And then we realized one plan was moving our bathrooms and elevators out of the way. And he pointed out that's the most expensive portion of our building, and so it's easier just to add on. So
Do you have a timeline for this?
once we get approval from at least 32 entities, we would break ground next August after we do ARB hearings. And then hopefully be done by May.
Got it, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you being here.
Thank y'all. I won't be if y'all approve this at the next actual meeting, because we have to be at La Vega and Midway ISD to do the same thing.
There you go.
So, but I thank y'all for your time.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Janelle.
Our next work session, I'm going to call actually the next two together, and that's work session 8:55 and 8:56. 8:55 being the discussion of the RFQ and market study on the Waco Downtown Redevelopment Project, and 8:56 being the proposed Culture, Arts, and Performance Center. We're calling it the CAP now, people. It's no longer the PAC. It's going to take me a minute to get used to it. So I do want to highlight, council, I'm very excited to hear these presentations, and I know you are too, and hopefully we got a lot of folks watching out, both in the audience and online, because this is an exciting moment to hear how all the pieces of a big puzzle might fit together. I do want to welcome Assistant City Manager Lisa Blackman to the table, as well as Tom Balk, our Strategic Initiatives Director, and then to his right, Jeremy Pacina from our Economic Development Office, and his right, Fiona Bond, who's our Champion of the Arts. Probably has a better title than that, but that's what I'm going with today. Who am I turning it over to? Who got first? You're up first, Tom?
If it's all right with everyone, I'll take it.
I think that's fine. We didn't do necessarily a very good run-through on this one, so I'm kind of flying blind on it, right, Jennifer? Tom, you want to lead us off?
I'm happy to. First of all, I do want to say I'm thrilled to be the champion of this project. So recently moved into that role as Director of Strategic Initiatives, and what a great project to step into. This is a once in a lifetime for the community, and we're shaping the future of Waco. So if I get a little gushy, that's okay. Just stop me. But joined by a great team here, and of course this project has been in motion for quite a while. This is built on the seeds that so many others have planted. So We're at a very exciting inflection point though, and I just want to quickly recap where we've been and where we're going. So for this presentation deck, we've got a recap of what is the focus area for the downtown development project. I'm sorry.
Okay, so I was just giggling, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. So our project area, we are now hovering over 60 acres downtown with riverfront views, great proximity to the river walk. This is prime real estate in Waco's core. We definitely remember that the Gensler study and conceptual plan helped us facilitate some of the key tools we needed. We have current action items. They're the heart of the presentation tonight. And then we're going to recap timelines and next steps before we hand it off for the next presentation. Just to give that quick overview, where are we talking about? We're talking about 60 acres that are within walking distance of City Hall and the Convention Center. So the epicenter of our downtown, prime acreage with those killer views. And we really recognize that the attractive part of a project like this is that for a community, for a community like Waco, there's a potential for more than $2 billion of investment that could come into a project like this. So that'd be tremendous for Waco. It'd be tremendous for our economy, and it really has all the makings to become the heartbeat of a regional economy. Oops, there we go. So the timeline that transpired with the Gensler Group to facilitate our study and the development of a concept, and really the purpose of this exercise was to flesh out what does a 60-acre opportunity look like, what scale should we be dreaming at, what's realistic, and so that initiated in April of 2022. And then quickly the acreage grew. There was a lot of effort and hard work that went into reaching out to our other local institutions and seeing what could be put together with this seed of land. And as the acreage grew, the study needed to expand. So by October of that year, after some of the information and data had been gathered by Gensler, we were able to successfully expand the scope of their effort and the public engagement. So that public engagement transpired through the winter with various focus groups and leadership groups and some public dialogue to help flesh out what does this community want to see in the heart of downtown, recognizing that it's got to perform and function greater than a tourist destination. It's got to feel like home. It's got to feel tailored to the Waco community. And so Gensler is very strong in helping us parse that out and give some visualizations to represent that, not just to ourselves, but to the outside world. So that process was wrapped up following their analysis and planning through the early winter with a presentation to council at the council retreat in April. And the key summary of findings here is that, of course, this community desires to see an activated downtown, 24-hour or close to that activation with a great variety of events and businesses that are catering to the pedestrian experience. This really builds upon the identity that we already have. We celebrate a lot of our cultural events that are centered in this area at Indian Spring Park and at the Suspension Bridge, but we want to expand that lifestyle and really let it enrich the flavor of a more expansive downtown. So embracing that Waco character is the key, and bringing in the right team that can help us do that is so vital. We must have a vibrant street life year-round, and we see entertainment must be a critical piece of that. And then again, making sure to be inclusive in thinking on every level so that all mobilities, but also locals and visitors must be feeling very welcome and at home in our downtown. So the lower images on this slide are just a helpful reminder too that Gensler and their approach, one of the key things they hone in on is that every community has a story and every great project is built around that. And they were really taken by some of these images over time of Waco City Hall and the Suspension Bridge in the background. One of the unique things about Waco's layout when it was first surveyed is that it's a city square model, but it places City Hall in the middle of that square, which is not commonly done. And it had a direct link to that bridge area, which evolved and changed over time and kind of went away when the convention center and the hotel were built decades ago. And incrementally, those might have been big improvements and wise moves at the time, but it's kind of an opportunity lost. And Gensler proposes the idea, what would it do for us to reopen that and re-engage? So considering the riverfront as our front porch and trying to put the activity and the life there. Oops. Thanks. So one of the ways that activation occurs, of course, is through a combination of residential, business, services, food and beverage, and programming. And so much of that is a recipe we're familiar with. We have elements of that, but how do you bring that together in a way that really primes the pump and gets us to that 24-hour clock kind of activation? Several of the elements that they identified for us fall into this category of public and public-private partnership type facilities. And that's really an advantage for a community like us because we have resources that can come into, for example, moving our workforce into this area to help drive the business hour activity. Those are moves that a municipality with a large workforce can choose to do. But there are certain ideas that we're less familiar with, such as what would it take to have a minor league baseball team and stadium in the heart of downtown? Something that's not just a single-use sports facility, but something that's a multi-use facility, not just for athletic programming and events, but also catering to the street life so that even when there isn't a game or activity happening in there, there's still offerings for that street frontage. So these elements, such as the ball field, the convention center and headquarters hotel, even a great lawn that's programmed and managed as a venue, these elements are items that have been identified for further study and analysis. It's one of the needs that was an outcome of the Gensler process. The current action items that spilled forth from the Gensler study then take us into some exciting milestones that we're kind of celebrating today, or I'm celebrating today. So the first and foremost is we have the tools developed that can help us tell our story to the world. We definitely are in need to make this type of project successful. We have to bring in the right development team. The prime real estate involved, the location, the scale of the vision, and the tools that have been assembled as far as how a project like this can be funded are very attractive to teams at a national and international level, and we have to do a good job of putting it out there and telling our story. That's what the RFQ is accomplishing for us. One notable thing about RFQ, request for qualifications, versus request for proposals. Proposals are very successful in a variety of other contexts. However, in the heart of downtown, we've tried this a couple times in recent memory, and as recently as 2015. And what that has occurred, or what that has transpired to look like, we see concepts, we see qualified teams come in and give us concepts that they think are compelling, but if they're not of the place, if they have not had the opportunity to embed and really get to understand our needs and our vision, or to be perfectly honest, the previous efforts were a much smaller footprint, so the opportunity was less. But in this moment, we have a great opportunity to start the conversation earlier than who can show us the prettiest picture, and start with whose values are most aligned to what we're looking for. Who's prepared to embed in Waco and become Waco and help us reveal what that is to the community? Who's prepared to collaborate with us on a deep level and spell out a multi-phase project that can be successful not only in realizing the total vision, but putting together a sequence that's going to propel the project forward through each phase. So again, that scale and exceptional location are key elements to making this the opportunity to secure a team like that. The images on the screen here are just some examples of projects in the state that may have been may have been orchestrated similarly that we're familiar with, such as the Mueller in Austin, the Pearl in San Antonio, the Stockyards in Fort Worth. These are large-scale districts that utilized a master developer to make sure that the whole development has a uniformity to vision and quality and orchestration. So should the city choose to do so, a single master developer team can be engaged for our project as well. The request for qualifications process allows us to see the proposals from various teams and their areas of specialty and have further dialogue. The timeline and mechanics of the RFQ process, we've issued as of last Friday. And what's interesting is that we sent out over 60 direct distribution emails in addition to the normal publication and advertisement. Already we have more than 75 statements of interest from folks that want to stay in touch with us as we move through this process. So that's exciting. The news is out and the buzz is happening. This is great because we really need the buzz to help propel us into the conversations that we are not familiar with, the teams that we are not yet familiar with. So we knew who to start with, and we're hoping that that ripple continues to grow and bring us teams that we're not yet familiar with. We have 8 weeks of advertisement, and so in that process, we are going to have an opportunity for an info session. So teams that are not familiar with Waco will get an opportunity to interface with us. But primarily, the request for qualifications lays out what we're looking for. We're looking for a proposal or a statement of qualifications that identifies what is their relevant past work, their approach to design and sustainability, what experience do they have in our arena, public and municipal, as well as please show and verify your financial capacity and familiarity with funding models that'll be similar to what we'll engage here. And we definitely want to spend some time examining the quality of the teams and reviewing references. So through that process, that takes us into November for submittals, or I'm sorry, into December for submittals. The evaluation of proposals will be performed by a team of staff leadership from a wide spectrum of departments, including economic development, planning, city manager's office, legal. So a little bit different approach than many of our other RFQs, but that's so key because of the importance and the depth of the project. And then the finalist interviews, we're going to go through, we're going to issue our invitations to the finalist teams for their interviews before the holidays in December. We'll be to that point to give them a heads up that in early January we want to be interviewing them face to face. And then the outcome of that will inform a special presentation to council on January 9th to introduce the team or teams that we think are compelling and worthy of further conversation. And in this process also, we will have a pre-vetted version of a pre-development template for their review, so that allows us and sets us up to move quickly into proposing an executed pre-development agreement on January 16th. So it's an aggressive schedule, but what that does for us is it gets a lot of the legwork and the preliminaries underway and accomplished early in the year, so that we can really get into the hard work of moving forward to next steps towards development in 2025. One cool thing that I definitely recognize we need to pause and highlight for a moment, the gap between the Gensler effort and the issuance of the RFQ, a really crucial and dynamic tool was being developed by our very own Jeremy Pacina to anticipate the questions and bring them all together in one seamless interface.
All right. Well, Mayor and City Council, we are really excited to show you this. So this is the effort. It's collaborative. They keep trying to say it's me. It's a collaborative effort. It's got lots of people's fingerprints on it, but we're really proud of it. And this is the result of us trying to capture what is Waco. You know, one of the things, you know, as a council, you're very pro-development, pro-business. You want the economy to grow. You want development in the city, but you want it to be thoughtful and intentional. And ultimately, one of the things we hear consistently is you want it to look and feel like Waco. You don't want it to be somewhere else. And so we were thinking the scale of this project and the interest that we're going to garner, how do we show them Waco? Like, how do we not have the cookie cutter developments that could go anywhere? We want something that looks and feels like Waco. And so that was, this story map is the results of that. It is connected to the RFQ, so it's part of the package that everyone received. And what we've tried to do here is just give them all the tools and all of the answers and all of the information that they could ask for. And so in here, it's got slides, it's got this. It's my favorite part of this thing is this. But we have the site information up here. So this is the layout, and we've even gone as far as being able to show the lot size, who owns the property, what the address of the property is. If you click on them over here, it'll zoom in to give them a picture of what is on the site so they can see what is there. If you continue here, we like to tell the story that this isn't something that just came to us. This is the result of decades of redeveloping downtown, investing in downtown. You can see out of the 70 projects over the past 5 years, almost 60 of them have been in downtown. It just shows the council's commitment to downtown. We give them demographic information, employment, multifamily, office data, restaurant data. We tried to get everything that they could possibly ask for, even down to the hotels in downtown, how many rooms are available. If you click on them, it'll show you what the average daily rate is. It'll show you the occupancy rates. It'll show you how many rooms are in it. And so the level of detail we try to put in their hands is extensive. And then this is one of the cool parts is they need to see Waco to know what we mean when we say we want it to feel like Waco. And so here you have history of these areas, these points of history or culture in Waco, and you can go through pictures, and we just have, they can scroll through and see Austin Avenue, they can see the bridge. And then this one is cool because what we want them to do eventually is come to Waco. And so this map, if you open it on your phone with your GPS enabled, as they walk through the city, it'll actually track where they're at, and they can see what is in the area as they're walking and exploring Waco. They can see where they're at and what things are near them and what's coming into these areas. And so one of the notes that I wanted to share as well was this RFQ went out on Friday. This story map has been viewed over 160 times since the RFQ was released. And so it is certainly being utilized. And it's a live document. So as people send in questions or ask for more information, we can add it, and that link is always live.
That's really great. And I do want to brag for just a moment on Jeremy because we have received high praise from the developer community that they've encountered story maps. This is an Esri tool. Other communities, other cities are using it as well, but we're hearing that the way it's been assembled and the information that's been anticipated as a need is exceptional to the level of being discussed as better than what they've encountered in New York, better than what they've encountered in San Francisco. So I think that's high praise, and I'm really excited for what this is doing for Waco. So great job, Jeremy. There's other tools that we have currently or concurrently in development as well, anticipating that for a successful project, we're going to need some other services. So on your agenda tonight, we do have two things that I want to highlight here. The first one is a market analysis. The market analysis of those key public or public-private partnership facilities and amenities, particularly the baseball stadium concept, the convention center and HQ hotel concept, and the mixed-use development ideas. These are concepts we're familiar with, we talk about a lot, but we do need to see the black and white that backs it up for validating that these concepts are appropriate and can be successful in our development. This is a proving process that any developer is going to want and need anyhow. So what this does is it helps us get ahead of the ball a little bit. So proactively obtaining this supports that future step of planning and helps the present step of attracting the qualified developers. We anticipate that this is going to play out over 3 to 5 months of analysis. There's 2 phases to that that focus in on first with the convention and sports, and then second with the mixed use concept. So we'll have some interim updates along the way, but 3 to 5 month process. And why would we recommend this particular team? We fielded some really great proposals for this effort as well, but Hunden Partners rose to the top because of their exceptional leadership in this type of work on this range of projects. They've done small scale to large scale, sports, tourism, convention, and so some of these images here kind of speak to that you may be familiar with some of the bigger and splashier ones there. Arlington, they help participate with the Major League Baseball study of relocating the Texas Ranger ball field. And then also the large-scale Dallas Convention Center, that's a big project that they were early on, but also working towards the smaller end of the spectrum too. It's not up here. They've done studies for Temple, they've done studies for Lubbock. What you're seeing there on the right, or on the left, is the Convention Center in Corpus Christi. Then also notably, they've been involved in the stockyards in Fort Worth as well. So they've done it all, really. It lends themselves very well to this project. And the CEO of the company is very passionate about working on this project in Waco. One of their values and ethics is that they are increasingly moving towards projects that are about transformative placemaking. And so that's the kind of people we want on our team. In addition, folks that we have on our team, that we want on our team, we've got a property survey that's crucial to this whole process. The bubble has expanded a couple times, and it's time. In fact, we talk about sites that comprise 60 acres, but we still need survey that includes right-of-way and river bank and things like that. So our total survey area is closer to 100 acres, and Walker's been brought on, or Walker's recommended to perform the topographic and boundary verifications that we'll need as part of this conversation. We'll be able to tailor the sequence and timing of various sites depending on the needs and priorities of the city and developers. We see a 5 to 7 month process with that, but it'll be exceptionally helpful to validating the steps forward. So just kind of a recap and putting all those timelines next to each other. The RFQ really is going to wrap up with that pre-development agreement that's going to be brought to council in January. The steps forward from there are really the give and take, the relationship part of working with a developer to collaborate and negotiate, gather the additional information as it rolls in to give real shape to what we're proposing and broker the deals necessary to make that work. The market study plays out to wrap up in the February timeframe, and the topo and boundary survey will wrap up in mid-May. So that's where we're at today. But again, I'll just put that note on. We anticipate if everything transpires according to this schedule, the earliest we would expect development taking place would be early 2025. That's the ambitious schedule that we're pushing for. And with that, I'm going to open it up. If there's questions, I'm happy to answer that or share with the team.
Any questions? I'm sure there'll be some good comments.
I'll start out here. This is amazing. I mean, it's just, the vision is fantastic. And I know when you talk about, anytime you do business planning in a business, you talk about big, hairy, audacious goals. I think we're seeing these goals kind of at least get grounded here a little bit, or putting them together and taking first steps towards seeing what's possible. Maybe that speaks to my comment on RFP versus RFQ, which I think is an important distinction, because some of the other deals we've done, we just kind of had a blank slate and said, come up with something, and what we saw was kind of varied and not appropriate for what we were trying to get done. So this, at least we're trying to track something that will work for the community. I see Lisa Sheldon out there, and when we see this, Lisa, does this remind you of like 15, 20 years ago when we were trying to do this in the private sector? And the time is right to be thinking about this, and we were probably a little bit ahead of our time back then. But when you can assemble, and a big part of it is assemblage of available acreage. And we're lucky in Waco right now to have that, or to be thinking about the 60 acres is kind of rare to be able to put that big of a tract together in this cool of a spot in the city. And also have it be kind of in the track of where we're kind of a phase 2 on what we're trying to get done with the pavilion and the Riverwalk and the mixed use resi and retail there on University Parks. This is kind of the next step. So one part of me also is saying, you know, we're not ready to spend the $30 billion, whatever the number is. We're not ready to do that yet, but we need to be thinking about it. And we need to be prepared to see what that looks like intelligently. And Jeremy, this is great graphics there. I can see why people are so excited about using it, because it's very, very user-friendly and intuitive. Let me go through my comments. I like the ideas of activating downtown. I think we're going to see, as we get the pavilion in place and the Riverwalk that we already have, you know, kind of funded. It's just a matter of getting to it over the next couple of years. I think when we see that reactivating downtown, this becomes more realistic too, as far as adding to the what makes Waco a cool place, what makes downtown Waco a cool place, because we're talking about. I'm just taking notes from that one-page convention space, the great lawn that kind of recreates some of the coolness that we had back then that we didn't preserve, but getting it back to maybe where it was. The baseball stadium and what little, we've kind of been talking about this a little bit. The latest design, and we'll get into this over the course of the next months. The baseball park is really kind of a community area, or community park is what we're thinking of, something that you can activate every day, not just to go see a baseball game, but just to hang out, walk through, exercise, a different concept in how baseball parks are evolving. So that appeals to me too, to have the community park essentially. And I guess we're going to hear about, are we supposed to interrupt now, or are we supposed to hear about the Performing Arts Center?
I think we're going to.
This is the juncture.
Performing arts is next.
Okay, I'm just, right now, today, we are just approving the market analysis and the engineering studies.
That's correct. Yep.
I'm just excited about taking the steps forward to bring parts of this into reality, and taking the opportunity to, that we had maybe 15 years ago, and actually seeing this come true is just, or being able to plan for something that the community would like, is exciting.
Yeah, I'll piggyback on that and echo that entire sentiment and just say that, Jeremy, you said that the story map's been accessed over 160 times or at 160 times, or that's awesome and so exciting, and it validates that as we have these conversations with these big ideas for all of this development, that it's not pie in the sky, right? That other people can see it too and get excited about it and want to jump in. So that gets me really excited that we have people that are accessing this tool and looking for maybe where they can fit in and how they can play their part in that. And as mentioned earlier, I just had a daughter, and I'm really excited to be here for this process and have see her grow up with this essentially, because this is not going to happen overnight. But it's worth the wait, and I'm thrilled that we are sort of putting boots on the ground with this, so to speak, and putting out the approval for the engineering on this. This is really exciting, and it's like Jim said, it's great to see it go from sort of conversations that we have to a piece of reality with where we're out there right now.
Thank you all for the presentation. I will echo my council members' sentiments already, and appreciative of the fact that we're using data in this way. And specifically, as Jim mentioned, the use of RFQ as opposed to RFP, even then, I think knew we wanted more, but didn't know exactly what that was. And so at this point, even our vision is clearer. The directives that the city should go. We've had more conversation with our residents. We've had an opportunity to really listen, to see, and we can say, this is what we want, how can you deliver it? Mm-hmm. And making those expectations. I'm curious, out of the 60+ invitations that were sent out, how many are Texans? How many are local? Curious about that.
I would say that much of that list are folks that have reached out to us in the various departments, and so that bubble, I think, starts close to home and expands out. So I know that there are some firms that are outside of state or national level, but I think, yeah, obviously Texas bubble first, and then we're working our way further.
No, and I think that's great, because I was hoping that, we would have a diverse sense of scope. You always, if you study hard enough, you can figure out anything. So it's not like it has to just be those fundamentally here.
Right.
But it helps if you're interested, invested here.
Yep.
In how we look and do things. So I'm really excited about this analysis. I'm excited about the study because looking at how other cities and downtowns have developed, right? From the many downtowns that I visited in Main Street or whatever, how they work, whether large or small, they have to be interconnected. And we've got placemaking, but it's situational placemaking. And I think this really would give an opportunity to really, if you're opening up downtown, and when I'm gonna use that term broadly, because as we've opened the river bridges, as we've activated space in Bridge Street and Elm Avenue corridor, as we've activated what McLean is and doing, as we activate what the arena is doing. So your downtown is not just Austin Avenue. And this is gonna take it even further out. So you really get to experience cultural depth from all sides of this. And so as long as that is taken into account in how we do this, because we have so many things, so many rich stories to tell. And as we create placemaking, let us make sure that place is made for all of our community in an intentional way, right? And I think that's where we can sit up, a little bit excited about, because, stories that were, even at the brink of being forgotten, now won't be. Because as we build place, even if we're putting brand new minor league teams, if you sit on a place that is culturally significant, those things I believe will be indicated even in and around how we build that. Is that where everybody's head is, yes?
That's absolutely right.
Awesome. Okay. Well, let's go.
Let's go.
No, I think we're seizing an incredibly rare opportunity that our community should be excited about, that any city would be envious of, and that any developer should be excited about learning about. The Waco market's ready for this. The land has been aggregated. We've got an incredible city team, an aggressive city team who's willing to work with a development partner. And I think that it's just an incredible opportunity to build new development that seamlessly flows in a historic district along a river. Really thankful for Bradley and Jennifer and their vision, Bradley's big vision for this project. He has really had thought this through methodically. And I look down at this table here and just see the dream team who's going to be ready to go. And so I'm really excited about what we're going to be able to deliver here together, guys. I think that what I'm hearing and what I love is that this project is going to feel like Waco. I think downtown Waco is going to look very, very different in 10 years, and that's a good thing. We want these parking lots to be redeveloped. We want to continue to see beautification and growth. I think when you walk down here, it's still going to feel like Waco to our community members. When they're here, they're going to say, man, this feels like home. This feels like Waco. But instead of parking lots, there's going to be retail and restaurant spaces and a community mall. I love the idea, the concept of opening up City Hall to the river again as it was intended. And I really am excited about how our community is going to benefit, or how our economy is going to benefit from this work. So thank you for this effort that we've got, or how far we've gotten to this point. Can't wait to hear what submissions come in, and look forward to what's to come.
Mayor, we kind of buried the lead here. This next part's just as exciting. Look forward to hearing from the team that's working on the cap.
Sure. Mayor and Council, I'd love to introduce Jason Long before I pass it over to Fiona. Jason Long is our architect with OMA, and he's our special guest today. Jason, we built the slide before we knew you were flying out, so I'm sorry your name's not on the slide. But myself and Tom Bach and Fiona Bond and Jason will walk you through the update on the new CAP. Fiona?
Thank you so much, Lisa. And Mayor, City Council members, city leadership, City Manager's Office, we are really delighted to be sharing progress on what we have started calling the CAP, the Waco CAP, symbolizing culture, arts, and performance. And I also want to recognize those who are in the room representing our organization, Creative Waco. Thank you to the staff team and board members for being here. And then also our performing arts community and wider arts community. I'm seeing lots of familiar faces out there. Also neighborhood association friends. So it's wonderful to have them in the room, as well as our representatives from CCS, who are the organization helping on the philanthropy component. So thank you very much to you and to everyone who has rallied to come here this afternoon. So just a word about why, thank you. Before I proceed on to the next slide, I was just going to say a word about why we are now calling this the CAP. And that really reflects a pivot in the concept as the designs have emerged, as we've started looking at the portfolio of things that are around this center. Seeing what this opportunity means takes us way beyond just providing state-of-the-art performing arts facilities and pivots us into a real game-changing breakthrough opportunity for a center that provides really wonderful facilities for performing arts, of course, but also career pathways in things like technical production, film and digital media, and creates a variety of indoor and outdoor spaces that offer really innovative live cultural experiences. And it also reflects on the role of the CAP in relation to the wider portfolio of downtown infrastructure within a few blocks, which would position Waco superbly to present festivals, for example. So culture, arts, performance is the title that's designed to reflect that really breakthrough opportunity for our community. So I don't want to spend too much time revisiting why we're looking at investing in culture, arts, and performance, which is ground we've covered before, but it is, I think, always important to keep our eye on the why and keep our eye on what it is that we are trying to shift by creating facilities that we don't yet have. And of course, we know that not only are the arts and cultural sector a leading quality of life indicator and a key characteristic of economically successful and sustainable communities, they're also really vital for attracting and retaining talent that goes far beyond the performing arts sector. And one of the things that we discovered in the studies that formed the precursor to this project is that Waco is currently losing the economic impact of having facilities that can present downtown performing arts experiences. For example, 95% of the people that were surveyed as part of the Keene study said that they spent money on those experiences in cities that are not Waco. So we know that this is potential growth area for our economy, and that this is something that we can't yet do in our downtown area. So not only is this a really fantastic economic opportunity, but it's also part of an ecosystem of quality of life improvements and opportunities for connection and shared experiences, which we know are not only points of pride for our community, but also opportunities to cultivate a sense of unity and hope and connection, and those are really important in our very fragmented society. So the process of looking at the feasibility of creating performing arts facilities for downtown Waco began with a feasibility study from September 2019 with Keen Independent Research. And they were commissioned by City of Waco to look at three questions. So firstly, is it feasible to build and sustain a performing arts center, performing arts facilities in downtown Waco? And secondly, if feasible, what characteristics should such a facility have? And then what were their recommended next steps? There were a number of key findings from that study. The overwhelming advice that they gave was yes, it is feasible, and yes, the time is ripe for doing something like this. As I already mentioned, 95% of the Waco population spends money to attend performing arts experiences in other cities. That was a really key finding. And then they also pointed to the fact that our community has nationally and internationally recognized performing arts expertise that could be a major source of programming, identity, and branding for Waco that is currently developed in that respect. And they projected steady growth in both market and demand across all performing arts disciplines, and pointed to the fact that there are a number of things that we can't present at all in our community right now because of there are not suitable facilities. And they also presented several viable options for venue management, sustainable venue management going forward. So since that feasibility study was presented, we took those recommendations and issued a request for qualifications to design and architecture firms. And at that time, you guys had a moment of brilliance and genius. I know it's one of many, but in identifying the site that is being proposed for performing arts facilities. That site in itself creates an absolutely standout opportunity for the performing arts, that it's the kind of iconic location that comes around maybe once in a generation, and that in itself generated so much interest from architecture firms throughout the US and actually beyond as well. We had dozens of responses to the RFQ, partly because the idea of building in such a visible, iconic location as part of a really major breakthrough project for a community like Waco was a really attractive proposition. And so my thanks, and I think everyone who's been involved in this process so far are incredibly thankful for this incredible location. It really does present an opportunity that I think is standout. The RFQ submissions were whittled down to 3 shortlisted firms who were issued a design challenge and competed with each other to rise to the top of that design challenge in fall of 2022. So the challenge was to design a riverfront performing arts center which would really optimize that incredible iconic location, that would also have a 2,000-seat auditorium, a black box or flexible performance space for around 200, digital media and production recording studio, which creates the opportunity of being able to have a live broadcast recordings in front of a studio audience, for example, and it also creates a whole cascade of additional opportunities because of the film and digital media expertise that also introduces into the space. And it also plays into a sector that we very much hope is developing in Waco, especially now that the Magnolia Network and all of the additional film and digital media opportunities that are now growing in Texas. It's something the state is actively investing in. public visibility and pedestrian connectivity for the site on all 4 sides, noting that it faces onto the Mary Street bridge and potentially Festival Street, but the bridge, of course, and I'm going to mention here thanks to Lisa and Rick Sheldon, who donated the former railroad bridge that joins up to Mary Street, which is directly linked to this site. That is another really fantastic connectivity component of this. And one of the things that really stood out to us with the submission from OMA was how well they had used that incredible connectivity with Mary Street. Then food and beverage opportunities, parking and loading ease, and to try to create something that was truly going to be a high-quality, internationally breakthrough facility for the performing arts. So a tall order, but from the very start and from the moment that we saw the submission from OMA, it really rose to the top and stood out as an exceptional use of that space and really innovative ideas about how to use both the inside and outside spaces in ways that we hadn't even imagined. So just a little word about OMA. They are a company, an architecture firm that is based in New York and Rotterdam. And they are renowned for an absolutely standout range of high-quality, high-impact architectural projects across the world. They are a leading international partnership that practice architecture, urbanism, and cultural analysis. And at the end of the selection process, the city contracted with Creative Waco to manage the design process with OMA when they were selected. So just highlighting a few of the things that OMA is known for, the CCTV headquarters in Beijing, the Qatar National Library, which is pictured top right there, the Seattle Central Library, which is pictured center, Casa de Musica in Porto, Fondazione Prada in Milan, and a number of really standout cultural and other iconic facilities across the world. A project working group was formed that met regularly to refine the renderings that OMA had presented in the competition, update the cost analysis, and prepare materials that could then be presented to the wider community. And at this point, I am really thrilled to hand off to Jason Long. Jason Long is with OMA and he is an expert in the cultural facility wing of OMA's design process. He has an MA, Master in Architecture from Harvard from 2004. He's been based with OMA since before that, even in 2003 when he was based in Rotterdam, and he's been in the New York office since 2007. He specializes in cultural projects, and these are examples of some of the projects that he's worked on. The Quebec National Beaux-Arts Museum, the Wiley Theatre in Dallas, which I just heard this weekend had won yet another architectural award as an outstanding North Texas, part of the portfolio of standout North Texas architectural accomplishments. The Fina Arts Center in Miami, the Marina Abramovich Institute in Hudson, New York, which I think is currently in design. So Jason has been working with us along with his team, and I want to make sure that we also mention his colleagues in this. They have also been really standout. Lawrence Siu has been his trusted architecture expert as well in this process, and we're so thankful to them for creating a really fantastic design that we think will be a really great fit for what we're hoping to see in Waco. So with that, I'm going to hand off to Jason, and he has some things to show us.
Great, thank you so much, Fiona, and thank you all for having me here and involving us in this project, which, as Fiona mentioned, is extremely exciting, I think, for any architect to be doing a project of this caliber in a city like Waco that's actively rethinking its downtown and the relationship to the river on such an iconic site. And with that, we have prepared, together with the team, a short video that we'll show you first, and then after that I'll explain a bit more. So, yeah, thanks. Thank you. So I'll tell you a little bit more about the design by stepping through a series of images. Of course, theaters are buildings that are inherently collective spaces where we come together and where dynamic things happen. But because of their technical requirements, they're often very hermetic, almost fortress-like buildings within a city. And we wanted this building to not operate that way, to be something that could be very inviting and porous and have a dynamic relationship connecting downtown Waco and the Brazos. And so we organized the building as a kind of plus shape, which allows us to expose each of the different programs, the main theater space, the black box theater, the broadcast studio, and also the lobby. And to the degree possible, make also those spaces transparent and visible to the city around them. And we placed the building parallel to the Brazos so that it actually sits at a slight angle to downtown, so that as you're moving up and down University Parks or you're coming down Mary Avenue or Franklin, the building has faces you in multiple ways.
That also allows us to make a very inviting small plaza facing Mary Avenue and slightly off of the hustle and bustle of University Parks. Here you're standing on what would be the extension of Mary Avenue, moving towards the pedestrian, to be pedestrianized, let's say, railroad bridge, looking into the main inviting lobby space that's filled with a kind of spiraling stair that connects you to the various programs inside. When you step into that lobby, you're in what we're referring to as the Winter Garden, so a space that's filled with green, but is also an inviting place for performance, and many times of the year, but also a place where people can simply come and hang out. And it's surrounded by an atrium and by the circulation that takes you up to the main performance areas, the various balconies of the main theater, but also the broadcast studio and other spaces in the building. We wanted this lobby to be some place that would be a real place in the city. So it's anchored in part by the so-called Nightcap, a restaurant and bar that acts as a hinge point between the lobby and downtown Waco, and also then the Brazos. So here you're looking towards the river through a kind of window that looks out to what we used to call the PAC porch, the Performing Arts Center porch, but now we need to come up with another name. But in any case, the idea behind this lobby is it's also a kind of threshold connecting Waco with the river. And so here you're looking back down at that restaurant space. So there's interior seating, but also the potential for exterior seating on the porch. And this could also be a real asset for the Riverwalk as well. Within the theater space, there's a main 2,000-seat performance space that we wanted to be of a significant scale, but and very flexible and able to house many different types of performance, from dance to theater to rock concerts to symphony performances. But we wanted that space to also feel intimate. So we have about half of the seats in the series of 3 balconies and then half on the ground. And they're divided up in a way that seeks to make for the space as a whole to still feel intimate for the audience and also the performers. So here you see an example looking now along the length of the performance space with the Broadway performance. And I should mention too that the intent here is that the floor is slightly raked to provide adequate sight lines, but that will utilize a system so that they can also be flattened, so that you can also use this space for banquets or weddings or other kinds of events that might not want the raked seating. So on the river side, here you see the broadcast studio above and the porch area underneath it. This provides a kind of shaded space facing out onto the Brazos and also connected to it through a kind of step plaza with a ramp that snakes down to the riverfront. And I think this is another benefit of the actual configuration of the building, that we get a series of distinctive public spaces as you move around the building. And one of those public spaces also faces the potential for a large screen that can be a way to also broadcast what's going on inside the theater, kind of simulcast, but also a space for summer movies and other kind of community events outside on the Brazos itself. And of course, the broadcast studio, which you see here above the porch, looks out onto the river and also the railroad bridge as well. And so I hope this building can be an exciting and vibrant contribution to downtown Waco, and one that echoes the life that's here already. The shape of the building is intended to also reflect the shape of the bridges, so the curves of the suspension bridge, or then the angled facets of the railroad bridges, as in the facade itself also echoes a bit the bluffs of Cameron Park. So we're very excited to show it to you all, and look forward to any questions or comments you might have. Thank you.
I think we're handing off to Tom to talk about it in the wider context of the
Absolutely.
rest of the development.
So the topic has been raised earlier in the presentation, that the location itself is very dynamic and lends itself to a world-class project, and that's what was so exciting about the RFQ process that transpired for this project, is that very quickly, we got feedback back from a very excited architecture community that, wow, you have lightning in a bottle here. This location, not only its views, its positioning in the downtown, but even just getting a sense of all the other visions that it connects into. It really becomes that intersection of vital development and projects yet to come. So obviously the Mary Bridge and the Plaza and the Mary Avenue Festival Street, these are plans that have been in the works for a long time that are coming. This site makes excellent use of that. And then also obviously with the pavilion project downstream, this is going to be a vital connector and draw from that investment, pulling those visitors and residents up into the downtown area. So this is the intersection point between the project that's on the horizon and the projects that are underway. And very much this could be considered the heartbeat project of it all. So we're thrilled for the direction this is heading.
Okay. And lastly, I will circle with our current step with the philanthropic analysis. So thank you, Mayor and Council, for approving the contract on September 5th with CCS Consulting. I would like to acknowledge that Ashley Mariani is here in the audience. We kicked off the project on September 19th. We had our first meeting on Friday the 13th with our community stakeholders to get them involved with the philanthropic analysis step. And then we anticipate to return to you in March with our findings. Really that process is to identify the fundraising ability of our community and then develop the plan to move forward on the capital campaign. So with that, I'd like to open it up for any questions you may have.
Any questions?
I'm going to let you handle this one, AJ. But I'll just say, I love the vision, and I like the fact that we're trying to figure out different ways to fund all these cool projects. And so I like the fact that we're actually trying to figure out if we have the philanthropic component here filled in, and as that materializes. But man, the renderings of Oma, Jason, are great. I mean, it's a beautiful vision, and it's in a space that at least I keep bringing you up here today, but it's in that space where we have always dreamed there would be something pretty cool there, and this is very cool, a very cool concept. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you all for a lovely presentation. This is exciting. I'm gonna look to Lisa too. You and Rick, when you got that property there and everybody else that was involved in that original project, it was, the vision was there, but the laborers weren't at the time. And I think that now we've cultivated an idea that we're gonna connect, I see Jeanette in the audience, Waco's front porch. One side of the river, you've got Waco's front porch. The other side, you've got, the opportunity for another restful place for our city, for our community. We had our inner-city visit with the Chamber a couple of weeks ago. We went to the Dr. Phillips Center in Orlando. And one of the things that I appreciated about that space was its openness, but it being inviting to the community. It was a place that, because performing arts centers can be stuffy. Historically, they're kind of cryptish. What happens inside is amazing. But, it is somewhat, the old versions of them are fortressy. I think that this has an opportunity to open itself, to offer the assets that we have in our river, in our community, as a visual backdrop, as a precursor visual backdrop to when you come into what you experience, what you'll see on the stage, whether it be main stage, whether it be the black box. This is amazing, and is exactly what I think we need. I know that just from a professional perspective, we have lost out on some pretty fantastic potential staff members for the city of Waco because our performing arts abilities in our community weren't where they needed to be. Culture is important for our community, period. You can't have the desire to have a vibrant working community, a growing community, a family community, a thriving community without a place for artists and art to flourish. And we're doing the best we can right now with what we have. And our artists are amazing that we have. But this would be that place, that crown jewel. And right now we're kind of loading this crown up. And it's all working together. I mean, to create complete placemaking for what Waco's heart is. You know, because yes, downtown specifically, but it's more than that. So you're creating an opportunity for its true core, all right, to be activated in all the ways to come together, you know, and when a plan comes together, hi Hannibal, it's really good. And I think that that's what this has the opportunity to offer, a complete and whole plan for our performing arts, for our cultural arts, for all of those things in the community. And now, we're certainly gonna have to find some money for it. Because we dream big and in color, and this is big and in color. So, you know, but it'll take all of us as a community to do that. So, hi, how you doing? I don't know you, but we got work to do. And so, but I think that as we kick off these things, these images are strong enough to do just that.
Yep.
So I'm excited.
That's exactly right. I think that, I just want to thank everybody sincere. Oh, did somebody, there's not go yet?
Sir.
Sorry.
It's fine. I was just gonna say, this is a slam dunk. I normally temper my expectations around how fantastic renderings look versus what it could be in reality. And I'll say, while I fully expect this to look exactly this way, if it looks half as good as what you guys have presented today, it will be like above and beyond what you could find anywhere else in the state of Texas, and I am thrilled about that. Obviously, as has been stated, we don't want to fully put the cart before the horse here, and want to make sure that we can secure the funding for it. I think that the feasibility study is really promising and should go a long way in helping with that, showing proof of concept that we do have the appetite to support this in Waco. And again, much like with the larger scale project, this is something that I'm so excited to be able to partake in and utilize for years to come. So thank you guys for your work on this and putting this together. I know it's not easy getting even to this point. So thank you for that.
Grateful for this team. It's all been said. This is going to be transformational. This is strategic. It is going to be the next asset that we need. Again, I think we're really outpunting our coverage to be able to add this to our community, and I'm really excited to see our residents and people from the region and people from all around the state be able to enjoy arts and culture and performances in this facility. So thank you so much for being here, and we really appreciate this team. And I believe next we have, Bradley will introduce the next speaker, but I was going to propose that we take a 10-minute recess.
Okay, that'd be great.
And we can move on to that presentation after that.
All right, we'll see you in 10.
Convene at 5:55. To move on in our presentations, we are going to skip over the work session 2023, 8:57, and 8:59 today because we're running almost 30 minutes behind. So for sake of time, we're going to move past those. Those were just to cover items that were already posted in our agenda packet. So if council has any questions about those matters, we can discuss them either during the public hearings or pull them from the consent agenda ahead of the business session and discuss those matters then. So with that, we'll hand it back over to our city manager, Bradley Ford.
All right. Well, I've got a great presentation coming up on this last work session, talking about development standards. And we'll see, my favorite slide in the deck that you'll see is the one that shows our stormwater standards or floodplain standards from, 1959, I think.
Yep, before I was born.
Before Amy was born. That's where we're at, and so I look forward, this team and beyond the group that's at the table have been working to update a number of our design codes and development codes, and definitely appreciate their efforts. They're not going to be necessarily 100% popular as they go out and into the community with these standards, but I do think the job we have is to protect the welfare of the city. And so I appreciate the team for what they're doing here and look forward to their presentation. Amy?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Amy Berlarley Highland, Director of Public Works. With me, I have Jonathan Cook, Director of Parks and Recreation. It all starts with parks, and our presentation starts with parks. And,
Did you care to say that, Jonathan?
I mean, I like you working it out. I worked in the City to Believe in a welcome this weekend, so let's make it happen.
all righty. And Laura Wagstaff from Planning, she's pinch hitting for us for Clint Peters, who was not able to be with us this evening. So also appreciation for Jonathan for stepping in as well. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Jonathan.
Good thing. We're going to get started here today, and there is a connection here. Why you're seeing such a grand vision on the development side that we saw from the presentations earlier, but then looking and remembering, you know, this development is not only being seen just in our core, but as we look across the city. And how do we make sure that we're, one, thinking strategically about from an operational and maintenance standpoint, and then also a future funding standpoint, to make sure that when it comes to development, certain neighborhoods, and whether that be parkland, it all meshes together. We're really thinking about how this is going to look in the future laying out. Now, basically going to hit the 5 W's here. You know, what are we proposing to change? Why we think it is important, where we're at in the process, and when we're going to be getting this done. It's been a conversation that's really evolved over quite some time, and really with the city visioning plan. And to get to this point, we're going to lay out just a timeline of where we think we're at. On that what, really the main focus of what we're looking at here is updating that design criteria. And that's looking at not only parks, connectivity to parks with sidewalks, also sidewalks from the mobility and the safety standpoint. Then the utilities, Amy's going to speak quite a bit when we're looking not only at public works, water utilities, sewer design, that street design, and then stormwater. You know, things happen in the Texas legislature that we're working to make sure that we're not only current in our standards, and one of those things that has really brought us to a point of looking at our subdivision ordinances and making sure that we're continuing to update those and make sure that we're meeting those requirements, and that has to do with creating the proper design guides for our developers. Why? It's pretty simple. Right now, our current standards, you know, they're not compatible with not only what our city council standards are, what our community wants to see, the market. These design guides and our standards and ordinances that we have in place are really the foundation. So we're looking at the long term. You know, current standards right now, we've seen evidence, as Amy's going to show in some of her presentation, where the infrastructure is just not holding up. And once something goes out that needs repair, that's where that financial burden shifts back to existing residents. So we often say in our parks area, we want to do it right the first time. And so we think we're getting to a point where this would help us take that step forward. Also, if you go back, and it doesn't take long, and as with everything, sometimes when you think out and take that step back, we found that our current standards really aren't communicated efficiently in the written word, unclear, and often can be difficult for staff to administer. Now, I mentioned earlier our city plan, and that's where I want to take a little more of a parks focus and look at the fact of where we're at on dedicated parkland. But as you recall, this visioning plan was formalized back in 2016 and really is a counterpart to our parks, open spaces, and master plan that we last updated in 2017. And within Chapter 7, we do have some else we've made some good progress on in terms of parks. In a neighborhood community park in China Spring area, that's a project that's kicking off with a public meeting coming up quite soon as we're kicking off that design. That had a land acquisition. Community park in West Waco area between Hewitt Drive and Ritchie Road. That's an area that we're also working on, not on current park improvements, but additional property acquisition. And then looking to create a more bike-friendly, walkable city with additional sidewalks and bike lanes. I'm amazed at the job that Amy's department has done in seeking out those grants to make sure that we're constantly moving ahead on the bike lanes and sidewalks. And then another recommendation was adopt a parkland dedication ordinance as a means of funding for new parks, either through a dedication of land or a developed park, and have that payment of a fee in lieu of land as deemed appropriate. It's interesting, we have a very loose worded ordinance right now and very brief in terms of parkland dedication. This is a strategy that cities throughout the state do utilize to look at alternative funding sources of how to meet that current expectation of standard of parks and also property acquisitions as we continue to grow outside the core. In 2015, in that plan, we did a lot of map work and looking, and obviously this map, quite hard to read, but as typical, you will see our parkland in the specks of green. And notice those are pretty heavily centralized within the core, but the one thing I want to point out quickly on this map is the areas of red of non-serviced areas, and this is from that city plan, so as you can imagine, those service areas have continued to grow, but it does show some areas to where we see a lot of residential growth right now in terms of subdivisions to where we're not keeping pace with park development. I mentioned our current ordinance does say, and this is it, the parks, playground, and recreational areas, that the city council may require a dedication up to 5% of the area of a subdivision for recreational purposes, and the acceptance of offers of dedicated parkland. So that is quite brief in what we want to do, and I'll speak a little bit more to it here in a second on our proposal. But before I talk about that change, I want to turn it over to Amy so she can talk about the current state of our sidewalks.
So you all know that we did have Fugro come and do a comprehensive evaluation of our streets and the condition of our streets and figure out what our PCI was. One of the other things that they did for us as well was an inventory of all of our sidewalk and a condition assessment of that sidewalk. So this is the current condition as of earlier this year from the Fugro data. You don't see a whole lot of green, which is good sidewalk. You see a lot of red, poor sidewalk, and a lot of black, missing sidewalks, areas where we don't have sidewalk in the city. So if we were just going to talk about fixing the poor sidewalk and bringing that up to a good, usable, safe standard, we're talking about $96 million of investment in the city. So if we also just shift.
One quick question, Amy. Can you flip back to that other one? I like that bold slide there, though. I don't like the number, but that should. Very bold. Did we, and I think I asked this question in preview, did we have the percentages? Because I remember in PCI I could always remember it was like 29%, 38. I know that we were way low on good and fair.
I can give you that by council district, by condition, by percentage, certainly.
And this one is remarkable too, in that so many areas of our city just don't have sidewalks.
And that's because we don't require them.
Yeah.
We only require them by ordinance along arterials and collectors and then one side of a neighborhood collector.
Okay, good slide.
So if we looked at just the areas in the city where we are missing sidewalks or we have gaps, for instance, if you try to walk along 4th Street, which I do sometimes to go down to the Ops Center or go down to utilities, there's quite a few sections where there are lots that have no sidewalk there. So if we looked at just fixing that problem in the city at this point in time, we're talking about another $57 million on top of that $96 million. So infrastructure investments are significant in the city.
So here we want to lay out what our current recommendations are, looking at these ordinances. In terms of parkland dedication, the number one goal is going to be to strengthen our parkland dedication requirement. And one of the things we would like to include is a criteria for land or improvements of dedicated parks. I'll mention that often, though we can see a vacant piece of property or a corner lot and think, oh, that'd be a great park, we do have as standards that we go by. And there are certain features of certain properties that perhaps would or wouldn't work. And so by relating some criteria on what exactly we need in terms of size, drainage, things of sort of infrastructure, we feel that is important. We also want to be able to say, hey, okay, if there is a park in the area, it's very important to look at basically that amenity enhancement and equipment replacement factor. Just like a car, things do not last forever, especially when a park is popular. There's a lot of wear and tear and a lot of elements. So it's important not just to come in and put in a park, but it's important to look at how we're going to maintain and sustain that park. And another key element is that fee in lieu of parkland dedication. Oftentimes, cities, and as we'll see a chart here, the dollar amount is based on the housing unit. Basically, we want to be able to look and say, hey, we've got newly areas, and based on the projected growth of those areas, sometimes going with that straight fee gives us an option to where it's not dedicated to a certain piece of property. Sidewalk?
Well, and our proposal for sidewalks is to require sidewalks on both sides of the streets, for all streets in the city.
And we're going to try to connect them to parks. So looking at this chart, and once again, some small type here, and I mentioned at the start of the presentation, parkland dedication guidelines is not a new concept in the state of Texas, and also you may have read recently about it in the news. During the recent legislative session, there was House Bill 1526 to where cities over 800,000, which you see marked with an asterisk on this chart, there's going to be some fee reductions based on how they're able to distribute that, how much acreage per area. So this is something, there's a little bit of control going on there, and they're balancing out, and that's something that we're looking to our peer cities to see where they're coming in at their rates, and also how they're adapting in terms of parkland dedication. I want to mention up top, just to give you a range, I think Austin, that 1 acre per 37 dwelling units, that's at one end of the spectrum. They also have park development fees as well. That's a separate category, as just not looking at park land dedication, but looking at the development side of things. On the other end of the spectrum, you see a Temple at 1 acre per 133 dwelling units. Temple also does have a fee in lieu of dedication. So there's a lot of different strategies here, and don't want to go through one, but it is something that we're continuing to research to make sure we find a spot that's not only beneficial for our community members, but we also want to be able to work with our developers coming in, because we know that's a key to a strong and solid park system moving forward.
On this one, Jonathan, I'm trying to, I like the comps. I love the comps, but the other ones are more specific, 1 acre per, 1 acre, whatever, half acre. And then ours is more kind of nebulous. But I know we're not deciding this today or anything, but eventually do we come up with something that's kind of more precise? Is that what we're saying?
Yes. Yeah.
Mayor and council, a few years ago, right before COVID, the city entered into a study, a subdivision diagnostic report with Friesen Nichols, and then they developed a subdivision draft ordinance based on those recommendations, and then COVID happened and it never moved forward. So they actually outlined a lot of really good recommendations within that diagnostic report as far as criteria, if we were to dedicate land, as well as some guidance for impact fees in lieu of as well. So those were the 2 documents that we will be looking into as well.
Okay.
So I know you like those comparisons, so here's your sidewalk comparison.
I love it.
It's pretty obvious that we're fairly behind in that when we're talking about requirements for sidewalks compared to other cities.
I guess, and I got to do more research on this too. I need diligence, but is that, has new, development, I guess I've been part of developments that don't have sidewalks, and it's not like people didn't buy them, there's still a market for neighborhoods without sidewalks, I guess. So I don't know, I want to, but this is on new development, and maybe to follow up on one of
Well, we also have on infill development in the core, if there isn't a sidewalk, you have to build a sidewalk if you're developing a lot inside the city.
Yeah, no, trust me, I know. My mom had cats because when she built the house, she had to build a sidewalk that didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
So, but now that I understand and I see people walking up and down the corridor of Herring Avenue, it's very important that they exist there, but,
Yeah, and I think we're getting to more mobility and
Well, that's the
pedestrian
thing.
traffic. It's kind of a trend.
As traffic patterns
Yeah.
change and adapt to people, and we catch up to, other countries and cities especially that are more pedestrian friendly, we have to find a way to see them through and make it happen.
Clearly, as we continue to activate our downtown, that becomes critical.
For sure.
Thanks.
Yep. So continuing into the street design criteria, really, we want streets that are safe. We want streets that are maintainable. We want streets that are sustainable. We want to be at industry standards. We want to make sure that we have adequate rights of way for the future and that we can provide for pedestrians and bicyclists. And we want to make sure that we're paying the lowest life cycle cost and that we're in line with our other industry standards in Central Texas. So the value of our street and sidewalk infrastructure in the city of Waco is over $2.5 billion. Just wanted you to know that we're managing an incredible number of assets, and you all are responsible for the stewardship of an amazing city with incredible assets. So what are we trying to change with our design criteria? Here's an example of a problem that we have. We have our concrete curb and gutter that settles because we don't have adequate support underneath that section of the pavement. We don't require it right now. So we end up with issues like this, which are expensive for us to fix. We also end up with curb and gutter rolling. I'm sure you've seen this in neighborhoods, probably your neighborhoods and not too far away from where you live. And that's another one of the problems that it manifests itself all over the city. We don't have a criteria for drainage that's adequate, so we end up with cul-de-sacs that have water ponding in them. We end up with sections of street that hold water and new driveways and sidewalks over here that the city's going to have to go back and fix this at some point in the future. And indeed, we do that when we go back and we do some preventive maintenance projects. We actually have to go fix the drainage issues that we have. This one is adequate street width, and if you look at that, a lot of our subdivisions are fully parked on both sides of the street because people use their garages for things other than parking their vehicles, and there's no sidewalks on either side. There's no safe place really for people to walk or bicycle or push a stroller with children, particularly when the garbage truck is in the area. So these are things that we want to move away from to the extent that we can. We also have an issue with our design standards with roads not living up to a full life cycle. And right now we have roads that are less than 20 years old that are in poor condition. We have a phenomenal number that are less than 30 years old in poor condition. So the total cost of that is $1.2 billion in needs that we have for all of these roads to get them up to current standards. And just a little reminder here about our budgets. Our street budgets are significant, but we also could stand to save significant funds if we reoriented the way we were doing our street design and construction and our stormwater design and construction. So what we would like to propose is to move from a less than 20-year design life criteria to a 50-year design life for our new street construction and for our reconstruction. And what that means is here at year 0, you build the road, and the incremental cost of building it to a 50-year design life is not much more than the cost of building it to a 20 or less than 20-year design life. But then at 20 years, you have to reconstruct that road, so the cost for the 20-year road in the gold jumps up way higher than the 50-year design. You are going to have to do maintenance along the way to your 50-year design, which has some costs, but it's not nearly as expensive as the reconstruction with the 20-year design. So then when you carry it out, again, you're rebuilding that road at 40 years. You're doing some significant maintenance to your 50-year design road, but not nearly as much. So that gap at the end there becomes quite incredible once you get up to the 50-year design life of the road. So if you took all of our roads in the city of Waco and you built them to a 50-year design, and you carried that out instead of building it to a 20-year design, you would save your taxpayers almost $12 billion in costs. So that's really the reason why I want to talk to you about this today, because it's a question of pay me now or pay me later. Do I pay a little less now and then have to pay a lot more over time? Or do I bite the bullet and pay a little more now and have our residents pay a lot less over time? So talk a little bit briefly about our stormwater policy. Similar, we want to preserve the public's health, safety, and welfare. We need to prevent harm that's caused by flooding and loss of life from flooding. We need to preserve the environment, and we need to promote the economic well-being of the city. And places that flood do not do well in terms of economic health. This is Bradley's favorite slide. Our storm drainage design manual is basically from 1959. It got a little bit of an update in 2013, but it's way overdue to be updated to current standards. Our stormwater assets, you may remember, was about $766 million when we put together the Stormwater Master Plan. In today's dollars, that's nearly $1,965 million in assets. So what are we trying to fix? Here's a subdivision that was built in 2014. We designed to a 5-year storm design. So that's what happens in that subdivision. I'm sure the people who bought those houses had no expectation that they would be living with this when there was a significant storm in their neighborhood. That's why we want to institute a design criteria to protect lives and property, to protect the quality of our local water resources, which is really critical now that we're in a drought. I mean, all the water that runs off of our stormwater system ends up in our water supply. We want to make sure that we have uniform analysis and design, and the positive thing about having that is that it's going to greatly speed up our design review and approval process because everybody will be doing it the same way. We want to minimize life cycle costs, again, like the street design. We have state and federal regulations that we have to comply with, and we want to be equitable and we want to be sustainable. Taxpayers should not have to shoulder the burden of fixing flooding issues that we could have prevented by building it differently when we first built it. So here's the storm criteria design. Waco is at 5-year. We're proposing to go to a 25-year storm design. And as you can see, 25 years is pretty standard. Some places have gone to the 100-year, but we didn't want to go for the nuclear option. We wanted to go to make it a lot better and still be cost effective. So here's another example. There's no 100-year flow path here. And this was constructed in 2007, and you can see the utilities are underwater in front of that house. You don't know where the street is. You can't tell where the curbs are. I'm sure the water is, based on looking at that mailbox, is probably several feet deep in that section. This is the house on Granada that we had to buy. The water actually came up the driveway, came through their front door, and went out their back door. It cost us about $270,000 to buy it out and demolish it, and we still have to go back and build a flow path through that lot to the drainage basin that's behind there so that we can get the water out of that subdivision. If we don't have criteria that calls for not allowing lot-to-lot drainage, you end up with situations like this where all of the mud from that house, which is built at a higher elevation than the neighbors who have been there much longer, ends up in their pool whenever they get significant rain. And then if you don't have detention criteria, Jose, could we play these videos? I can't see down there. I'm sorry Councilwoman Rodriguez wasn't here because this is by Sacred Heart Church. This is the backyard of those properties that are right next to Sacred Heart Church. And that's because there isn't adequate detention for the stormwater. So this is the back. And then this next video that we'll show in a second is how it flows between the houses out to the street. But I can't imagine living in a place where you have to experience that and deal with that in your house. I don't know if I can hit the target to play the next one. mean, that's significant flow there.
Is that in the same neighborhood? Ann?
Yes, it is. It is. And that's something that we could have prevented if we'd had detention criteria for that. So we have houses that have been constructed in floodplains all over the city now that we have a better idea of where our floodplains are, since we did do our upgrade to our flood studies. And we want to prevent that from happening, or if it's something that is going to happen, we want to make sure that it's constructed in a way that the house is protected and the property is protected. So we have these drainage problems all over the city. Here's a few other pictures of areas that staff have taken as they've gone out and done drainage studies after storms. And then why should we care about stormwater quality? Because as I said before, every watershed and watercourse in the city contributes to our regional water supply. And that could be a catastrophic threat if we don't protect our stormwater quality. And it can keep us from having to do more expensive things in the future if we prevent the incursion of sediment into our water quality. And we need to comply with state and federal regulations. And I think this past year and a half has proven to all of us how important it is for us to protect our water supply. So the proposed criteria for storm would reduce flooding, enhance safety and mobility. People wouldn't be trying to decide if it's safe to drive through that flooded road or not. It would use current design methods and standards that many other cities are already using in Texas. And it's sustainable. It reduces the cost to the city and our tax burden on our residents and our businesses. And it's more fair and beneficial to everyone. So where are we at in the process, and what are our next steps? To date, the water and sewer design standards have been completed in draft. They went through all of the comment period with AGC, Heart of Texas Builders, ASCE, Texas Professional Engineers, and the monthly developers meeting. And those standards, draft standards, have been in use and proven for more than a year. I think it was June of 22, water utilities actually started requiring that level of design. For street and stormwater, we did earlier in the year have multiple meetings with the design community, the development community, and the construction community. As Mr. White has referred to, they provided us with extensive comments, and we have prepared responses to each of those comments and made some significant adjustments to our design criteria and stormwater criteria where we thought it was practical and appropriate. But in the future, what we're doing is updating the fiscal impact of these proposed revisions. We did do looked at that a little bit earlier in the year, but the market has changed, prices have changed. We want to update it to make sure that we're talking about apples and apples when we go back. And we'd like to follow up and go back with all of those comments in the resolution and have in-depth discussions about what we changed and why we changed it. And we may actually make some more adjustments depending on feedback we receive once we have that back and forth discussion. And we will host meetings with groups of people, and we will also host meetings with individuals as requested. And then we'd like to finalize and adopt the design policy for water, sewer, streets, and stormwater. So the next steps is today we're hoping that you'll tell us it's okay for us to move forward with this process. We'll work on fleshing out the implementation plan. Then we will provide those detailed responses in November and stakeholder meetings. We're going to draft the adjustments to the city ordinances, because what we're doing is we're taking that criteria out of the ordinance and we're putting it in its own separate standalone document. So then we would have to take that through the Planning Commission, and then we would have to bring it back to council for approval. And with that, I'll entertain, or the group will entertain any questions that you might have.
Any questions?
I don't have a ton of questions here, but what we're doing today is approving your future efforts. And I think communication is almost like the paramount here, that you're talking to the building community, HOTBA, Hardtex Builders Association, the AGC, the ones you have listed there. We're in active communication trying to come up with solutions. I like the analysis and the data. We're talking about park dedication, sidewalks, curbs and gutters, general design standards, stormwater design, a lot of different things here, but just creating a more durable, I guess. My durability keeps coming up here.
Yeah.
Instead of a 5-year, 10-year, we're kind of just making that, because I like the slide, whatever the billions of dollars that we'd be saving over time. I guess also as I think about, I like this slide that you showed where the peer cities, that was an easy one because you could say it's 100 years or 25. And if, to the extent you can find other ones on those other, on the other aspects of this, like going from 20 years to 50 years, is that what other cities do, or is 30? I mean, because I'm trying, some of this cost is going to be just, is going to come from somewhere. It's going to be passed on ultimately to the home buyer. Let's face it. But if they're not material, I don't know. Let's just keep all that in mind as we're.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if there's a difference of 20 years going to 50 or 20 years going to 40, and that saves everybody $5,000 a lot, I don't know. Just there's on some of these, there's where we are aspirationally where we probably should be, and maybe there's something in between that makes sense. But anyway, you guys are the best at it. And we've got a great, going back to that slide, we got a great builders community here in Waco too. So I'm sure we'll figure out something that works.
Is in line with Jim's comments, Amy, is that how the conversation's been going, and that's how y'all have made some adjustments and addendum because, you know, you're hearing the issues from the developers about how we make this work? I mean, the cost will be the cost, and somebody will have to bear that burden. But I think that the only way we're gonna make it make sense is that if we come get as close to the middle as possible.
Yes.
Is that what's happening now?
Well, I would say a qualified yes. We were sort of put this on hold for a while because we were
Okay.
working on some other things, and now we would like to get back to
Well, and I
it.
mean, and getting through session and all that business, so how it figured itself out. What is use the word nuclear? What is worst case scenario on this?
I'm, in terms of what?
So if it's approved as it is now, that is the recommendation is the best case scenario, yes?
For me, yeah.
I mean, because you're having the conversations with the community partners. I'm not. So I need to know what is the worst case scenario.
The worst case scenario is we shelve this and we don't improve the way we're doing business and the way we're constructing our infrastructure, and it ends up costing all of us more money as we go down the road.
I mean, and as you've looked at the slide that presented it, the increase in infrastructure costs that we've had just in the 5 years that I've sat from this dais is evidence of what happens when you don't maintain properly, because we're having to go back and do decades of rework of infrastructure, which has cost us, I don't know what that slide said, a bunch. And, you know, moving forward in that, if we change the way the policy is set, that's just smarter decisions. It is adding sustainability and longevity into the assets that we have. It will have to happen. The peer city list proved that the other major cities have made those changes for that reason, right?
Yes.
Okay. So this is something we clearly need to do so that we can keep the trajectory of fixing and bettering the assets that we have as we can. I mean, because it's what, the $3 billion you said to fix it all, which we don't have. I mean, unless, I don't know what's in your purse, but what that we don't have. But the only way we're going to do this is if we kind of make smarter decisions in how we grow. And I know that to the development community, it could feel like a burden, but the long-standing burden would be on all of the community, I think. And I think that that's not something that, I don't know that anybody would want to develop in a neighborhood or in a community or in a city that that I was going to hang a mantle on your neck in 5 years, right? So I know that there's some concerns.
Yeah.
And we hear them. And we're gonna work to find as close to the middle as we can on this, but it's something that has to happen in order for our community. The costs have to be borne by somebody. I mean, we can want it to be magical all the time, but somebody's got to pay for it.
And not to be too engineering, we have looked at ways that we could decrease costs. So for instance, our design criteria for drainage, we have gotten rid of junction boxes and Ys and things that are more expensive that the development community has said, these are a pain in the neck for us.
Yeah.
And we went back to our maintenance guys and they said, you know, we hate cleaning these things out. This doesn't make sense. So we've revamped the way we're doing our stormwater so that we've eliminated all those extra precast parts. So the drainage cost is actually going to go down. Obviously, the sidewalk cost will go up because we're going to be requiring something we haven't before. So we have worked with the development community to find out what their pain points are and try to adjust to those things to the extent that we can.
And I'm gonna ask, and for our city management team as well as you all to look at the areas that the developers have to go through. If this is an increased requirement on them, is there an opportunity to make the process any easier? And those are some ways, but if we can look at it from that perspective to make sure that we're offering a level of ease into development. There are processes, there are steps, but as long as we're looking to try to make it easier. You know, I think that's fair on our end.
Good point. We're certainly trying to make it a lot less confusing. Because if you looked in our ordinance and you looked at just a simple thing like, what is the street width I'm required to build? You could come up with several different answers depending on which part of the ordinance you read. And we spend a lot of time in sometimes heated discussions about that. What's the right number? Because you can find different numbers in different places.
Yeah.
I appreciate this presentation. I agree that we do need to implement some updates, but I also want to realize that construction costs are up, interest rates are up. It's a hard time in the home building industry right now. At the same time, as I mentioned, we need to do this, and at the same time, housing costs are expensive in our community, and we have a pent-up demand for good, affordable, quality housing, and so that's a lot to balance. And all I would say is that, echo what's been said, but to continue to work with builders to really make sure that we don't have an unreasonable cost. I think communication is going to be key. If there's some things that we've undone, then we need to very clearly demonstrate that in a graphic form to show these are things that we've changed to make it easier. And I agree with Councilmember Bearfield on continuing to examine our processes to make sure developing in the city of Waco is a positive experience. Can be things that we can do through this process. I look forward to hearing about how the continued conversation with the building community goes. I certainly want them to hear from us that they have a strong voice in this and that we want to ensure that we hit that right balance of ensuring that we are looking at how to build our developments correctly and not at the same time have undue fees or costs pushed onto them. So let's keep moving forward and look forward to hearing how those conversations transpire. Thank you, Kim. I believe that's all of our work sessions. So are there any requests for future agenda items? If not, we will recess the work session and reconvene for regular session. Reconvene regular session for executive session as read into the record by the city secretary at 5:35 p.m.
Notice is hereby given that the City Council will go into executive session in accordance with the following provisions: Real Property, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.072, and Economic Development, Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.087. We are now in executive session.